there's always this sense to me, at least, that like that was kind of my first love. Literature was my first love, as I can remember. I can remember from a very very young age just being crazy about books and about reading, and I really loved it. And I for many years I thought that was going to be it. That was going to be my creative pursuit, and that was going to be my life. And then music came into the picture, and I always stayed for the love of reading, with the love of reading and with the love of books. Somehow I kind of assume or settle with the idea that that was it. That's what it was going to be for me, like I was just going to be, let's say, a spectator in terms of what literature was. And then at some point, as part of that search that you're talking about, one of the things that I think that really helped me click in finding who I wanted to be as a composer is coming back to it and decided that why not? I'm just going to give this a go. And I think it's one of those things that it's probably been under the surface for so many years that I was kind of fighting to get out at some
Yeah.
point. And so when it did, it was such a powerful tool in a way, because like I could immediately feel the two of them coming together and how one thing informed the other. And it was so important to my process and to the outcome. And like the entire album actually came out from that particular desire of bringing literature into the mix and bringing text into the mix. And like I approached it kind of little by little. Like there's a lot of it that you can probably see it in the way the album is shaped as well. There's moments in which like I'm starting to get a grasp of it. And so for example, I start with text that already exists, and then from there I start working on my own text. And then there's for example, that's for There Is a Willow, which was the first one I wrote out of that set, in which I was like, okay, I'm going to start with something that I know and then see where that takes me. And then I get bit more daring and say, okay, I'm just going to go for something that's completely my own, which is Sea Salt and Turpentine. And that's complete original text. And it felt so good to have it
Yeah.
there from beginning to the end. And it took me a long time. But it was such a powerful moment in terms of creative process to me. And then for the last one, that was I Wake Up in the Night When I Dream in Black and White. It's all original text, but it's also the first time I put it as text and not something that's going to be singing, because it has the element of the spoken word, so it's more exposed in a way. So it felt like I was trying to find all these different ways in which text could come out with music, or work together with music, or work on its own and then come the music. And it was a whole different process to what I've been used to, and it feels like something that somehow I owed to myself, to open that window and give myself the opportunity to work with text, whether it is as lyrics or spoken word, or as you say, take something that I love and talk about it and reflect around it.
What draws you to writing your own text as opposed to setting someone else's words? I mean, text writing seems like such a scary thing to me personally. And you mentioned like it taking a long time to get it right for the one piece, Sea Salt and Turpentine. I mean, I'm sure that you could talk a lot about this.
Again, the curiosity of working with text was there. And then I think the times, because I've done this before as well, working with set text is such a different experience, right? Because there's a lot that the text is already giving you in terms of rhythm, in terms of structure, in terms of like shape. There's so many things that are there already. Meaning, of course, like, like you're working around something that's already been done, it's already been said. And what I really love about working with original text, and like the first moment I did it, like after that, it just became like this thing that it came to me easily, is the fact that you have control over everything, right? Because like if
Yeah.
there's maybe a word or it's something in terms of the form or the shape or the amount of text you need or how you want to fit it, that it's almost like it works in tandem, at least for me. Like it's very rarely do I just like sit down and write the text first fully and then put the music into it
Yeah.
the same way you would do when you have set text, right? It's usually a very open dialogue. and it's something that, okay, maybe I do a draft of the text and then I start setting the music and then I come back to it, or maybe I start working on like a melodic idea and the text comes attached to it. And it's such a different interplay, so to say, that to me it's almost as if it's like a completely different form of composition than it would be working with set text. Yeah.
Oh, it's so fascinating to me because I haven't written a lot of vocal music, but something you said about like with text, like it gives you so much. One of the only vocal pieces that I've written, I did in grad school, and it was setting text by Walt Whitman, and it's like what's the collection called? Leaves of Grass, I think, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like near the end of his life, and he's like sitting under a tree, and it's like an autumnal day or something, and he's like describing like the weather and the and nature around him, basically. And I went to set it, and my teacher in grad school was like, you don't have to like create music from the text as it goes. You can like look later in the poem or the
Yeah.
story, and you can like set that to music from the start. And that was like such a revelation to me, like, oh, he's right. Like I can like setting the text isn't just like putting words to melody. It's like creating an atmosphere, and you can do that through time in a way that like words almost fall short, I think.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'd love to dig a little bit more into this because I think like when we talk about, okay, putting words to music, that's like a very um easy thing to understand, I think, for most people. But besides that, what other ways do you like work with the written word, and how does that like influence the narrative of your music, the textures that you use, the harmony, all that kind of stuff?
I think it's interesting even what you're mentioning. And I'd say most of us, when we first approach this kind of big name poets or even like a work we really like, it feels in a way intrusive, right? If you're touching, I don't know, Whitman or Keats or Shakespeare or like, and these are things that feel in a way kind of sacred, and you don't want to break them. You don't want to do something wrong to them. And I think that's one of the first things that for me was very important to, and maybe the way you perceive it is really good, that you perceive the way that I do it is like, okay, I'm not doing this author, I'm doing my spin or my version
Mm,
on this author or whatever this author makes me think or feel. It's interesting because I know loads of it comes from taking, in a way, charge over it, like, okay, this is someone else did it, but this is my version of it, this is me now. And I found, like, for many pieces, I just finished one there that I was doing for chamber choir Ireland on a John Keats poem, and I've loved John Keats from very early on, and he's such a fantastic writer. It's a really long beautiful poem, but like I couldn't possibly do the whole thing. Like I
yeah.
couldn't possibly, make it into music. So what I decided is like, what do I want from this? And if you didn't necessarily know it, there's many things of it that you probably wouldn't recognize, because I just ended up just pick and choosing bits, words that I liked, verses that I liked that maybe I would repeat incessantly and like that sort of thing. And like what is it about that particular poem that I'm interested in and what makes it my own. So I think that's a way to do it. And I think because we're all so sensitive as musicians to things like rhythm and phonetics, I feel like loads of it inform my decisions as well whenever I'm working with text. So of course meaning is massive, but phonetics and rhythm are very important. And sometimes you'd find yourself choosing, when I'm doing original stuff, one word over the other because it's two syllables instead of three,
Yeah.
or because it has a certain vowel that has a sound that works better in that melodic shape that you're imagining. Or, like there's all these sort of things that come into play. And sometimes they're mostly intuitive, to be honest.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Klein, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.